Morning. Call the meeting to order. Could you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I neglected to give them the signal that we're on the air. I'm assuming we are. Morning, everyone. Is everybody here? Okay, welcome. It's January 24th, 2018, Board of Directors meeting of Nevada Irrigation District. And we'll move to public comment. And please keep your the items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the public comment.
No pledge?
We already said it. Yeah, I may have done a little. And also, we're going to have 3 minutes per person. 20 minutes per subject matter, and the 20 minutes is discretionary, depending on the issue. So, with that, please.
Well, good morning, Chair Morbeck, Board. My name is Peter Van Zandt. I live at 15571 Ridge Estates Road, Nevada City, and I am an NID customer. Last week, 2 delegations from citizens concerned here attended meetings of the California Water Commission. The first was, by invitation, a workshop for concerned groups, and the second was a regular meeting of the commission. The workshop was conducted by CWC staff on the topic of criteria and processes for applications for Chapter 8 funds from Prop 1, which is an NID is applied to those funds. No specific applications were discussed, but staff pointed out that a guiding factor in the review comes from the language in Prop 1 directly. Executive Director Joe Young explained that a major decision factor in funds eligibility is the return on investment calculated for the projects. That calculation was made through the public benefits ratio, which is complicated, but Nick and I had a lot of fun with that one. It is essentially the monetization of benefits claimed by the applicant. Benefits not supported by actual monetary calculations were disallowed, and the claimed benefits must be net benefits. I believe your calculated ratio is around 4. Joe reported that the ratios calculated by the staff are lower than those reported in the project application. Did mention specific projects. He also reported that the ratio would influence other factors in the evaluation and account for up to 33% of the scoring on projects. This is a competitive process for these monies, by the way. Applicants can appeal the staff determination through an appeal process that allows new information. That would be for staff here. Staff also outlined how public input would be handled. That's coming from our groups. Interestingly, it was mentioned several times during the workshop that the legislation requires the projects must include benefits to the Delta or Delta tributaries. We also note that your application says specifically I'm quoting, the proposed project does not provide measurable improvement to the Delta ecosystem or tributary to the Delta. This was not discussed and how that's going to play out. We don't know how it's going to play out. Certainly seems to put your application at odds with the criteria. So thank you very much. How'd I do?
Thank you.
And Tracy will have more comments on that meeting we attended. Thank you.
Here's Tracy.
Always same subject.
Good timing. Are
Are the other people in line cool with that? That was kind of
Sorry.
weird.
Good morning, Board. My name is Tracy Shannon. I'm with the Foothills Water Network. I'm here to provide comment.
Tracy, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm here to talk about the California Water Commission and the grant application that the Nevada Irrigation District has put in. As you can recall, this is something that was submitted back in August.
Are you sick?
No.
Don't have the flu or anything?
No, I've gotten over it.
Okay.
This sounds like it's going to be a lively meeting. And anyway, Aqua came in August to present on this item, and at the time, the board had expressed, concern and about not being in control of the water, and if that application was really a good idea for the district. So this week and last week, there have been several meetings because the public benefit ratios are going to be released. And what the public benefit ratios are, the state is saying, if we give you $1 of investment towards your project, how many dollars will you give back to the state? What's the amount of money that our investment is going to bring in public benefits? There's a lot of thought being put into this, and it's changed the schedule for the allocation of the grant funding and the timeline. Because of that, there's a lot of concern about it, and because of that, there's a big decision point coming up for water districts or applicants who have put in money here. And the reason being is that there's going to be an appeals process. So on February 2nd, the California Water Commission will announce what NID's public benefit ratio is. And I can tell you, you may already know, it's very likely that that public benefit ratio will be 0 or under 1. So the commission is saying that your centennial application provides 0 or under $1 public benefit to the public. Yes. And with that, there'll be an appeals process announced. NID has a decision to make here. Will you file an appeal on that? And if so, it's due on February 23rd. After that, the process continues. There'll be reviewers from the state that look at the application, and in May there's a 3-day meeting to decide, here's the final public benefit ratio. Now, there's a lot of concern about that. We went to meetings, and Contra Costa Water District got up and said, what? This is going to require a profound amount of new information from the applicants. This is a new lift for us. And so I want you to be aware of that. The other thing that we heard was that in one meeting, staff expected that some applicants would choose at this point to drop out of the process. And as you just heard, there's good reason for that. No. I will yield my time to someone else. That's what you get for running. But here's the long and short of it. In May, you get to that final meeting, and granted your public benefit ratio cannot be good, but in May, the projects that are ineligible for the funding will then be removed. And they cited one example of how are you ineligible for the funding if your project does not provide benefit to the Delta. NID's application clearly states no benefit to the Delta. We are asking that you put this on the agenda for your next meeting so that the public can be aware of what your strategic plan is for this application, how much money has been spent on the application thus far, and how much would have to be done. Thank you, Chair. More later. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about that.
Oops.
Can even start.
I'll get this thing going there eventually.
Nicole Ragland, Grass Valley. I read the opinion piece by Mr. Wilcox that was published on January 9th in the Union. You knew it was coming, Nick. Nick said, climate change is shrinking the snowpack. Yes, it is. And it would be negligent to further propel us into climate crisis by clear-cutting hundreds of thousands of trees.
That's not in my outfit.
It was.
I didn't say that.
You said climate change is shrinking the snowpack.
I said nothing about trees.
No, I'm talking about trees. I'm talking about trees. We are already losing pine trees to the bark beetle and cedars to the pathogens. This is my rebuttal to you. Because climate change has created conditions that are proving to be fatal for our trees. Destroying the trees to pot water right now is like setting your house on fire to get rid of a plumbing leak. We need responsible solutions, not rash NID customer costing potential developer money-making ones. The EIR, and I quote, for the proposed Centennial Reservoir project is currently being developed by expert consultants. In the interim, this is my rebuttal, $7.5 million worth of property has been purchased. A PR firm has been hired at the cost of $300,000, and how much has been spent applying for the CWC grant? This board pushed forward with the proposed dam as if it were not a proposal at all. You could spend $300,000 more with the PR firm, and your actions will never counter the spin. I can save the wait for the EIR. There will be an environmental impact, and it will be a costly one. Not dollars and cents costly, contributing to the climate change costly, adding to traffic costly, shoddy development costly, and pricing people out of the area costly. I quote Nick, any claims by opponents regarding the project, including water gain from proposed alternatives, costs, and funding mechanisms, are premature and completely speculative at this point. We are not your opponents, Nick. We are your fellow community members. We are the same people who would come to your rescue if you were injured. We are your fellow human beings who have just as much a stake in the survival of our species as you do. Where we differ is that we will not allow ourselves to be fooled that more dams are the answer. We can increase the capacity of existing dams in conjunction with capturing groundwater and encasing canals. We need to create an environment that promotes snowpack, not decreases it further. It is not just the responsibility of Nevada County to fight climate change, but it is our responsibility to act as a model for other communities. As NID director, I must take a broader view, look long-term, and consider the public interest. We want you to look long-term, Nick.
All right,
And the
thank you.
time, I got a few extra seconds, yeah?
5 seconds.
All right. There are those who categorically oppose dams. I understand that. I once felt the same way, Nick said. What happened, Nick? We need you to come back to the side that is right. We cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow men, and among these fibers, as sympathetic threads, our actions run as causes, and they come back to us as effects. Herman Melville.
Good morning. My name is Mike Bissell. I am a resident of Weimar. I live about a mile from the proposed Centennial Reservoir. I appreciate the opportunity to share my feelings about this project with you, since I can't vote for or against any of you directors, and that's a source of frustration, I have to admit, because this project, if built, will have a major impact upon my life. I've lived in Weimar for 34 years. I built 2 homes there, raised my children, and have spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours recreating along the Bear River, which, if this project goes through, will not exist anymore. It will be a reservoir, which will be, sometimes in the summer, I'm sure, half filled or less. The recreation, I'm not sure if you as directors or NID understands the scope and the amount of recreation that has taken place on the Bear River and does. If you haven't, I invite you to come over there on any day and check it out. Some of the things that I've done over the 34 years of living there, I've rafted on that river, I've swam in it, I've mountain biked, I've walked along the trails, I fished it, fly fished it, I've done a lot of things. I haven't gold panned, but there are a lot of people that gold pan there. There are a lot of activities, a lot of recreation that will disappear if this reservoir is built. So I'll limit my remarks to the recreational impacts that I'm going to feel, and I would have to say, actually I'm going to finish here a minute ahead, so I should get some bonus points for that. I have to say, in my opinion, that whatever recreational benefits that you're touting associated with this project pale in comparison to the current recreational opportunities that exist there. Thank you.
Morning, George Olive, Nevada City. I've been thinking and talking a lot about NID board agendas in the last few weeks. It turns out others have similar questions. A man named Darrell Berkheimer, whom I don't know, had this to say in the Union last week. Berkheimer writes, "I can understand the board having the power to raise rates as needed to cover escalating costs without voter approval. But isn't it unusual for a major capital improvement, such as something as big as a dam, to not have to go before the voters for approval? I also noticed issues that NID board members apparently wish to ignore, and they're pushing full steam ahead to build a Centennial Dam. Among them are the issues of putting the cart before the horse." I like old-fashioned sayings. "But an even bigger issue of putting the cart before the horse," Berkheimer continues, "is the spending of millions of dollars to buy properties in the area of the proposed dam. And shouldn't such actions as the buying of properties be delayed until the dam project becomes reality? Isn't it possible the dam never will become, no wonder I can't see this thing, will never become a reality, just as the once proposed Auburn Dam failed to become a reality? So that money might have been spent on property that won't be needed. I'm also wondering if those issues could result in NID money wasted in defense of a civil suit." Berkheimer concludes, "In addition, the NID board has failed to respond to specific questions regarding total expenses and, most especially, how the project would be financed, issues raised in an Other Voices column last month by Peter Van Zandt. No wonder area citizens are disgusted with NID board actions, and no wonder the NID board member elections have drawn much more attention and more candidates than usual. Mr. Berkheimer probably knows about NID board policy 5020.2.1, which outlines how citizens request that items be placed on a regular meeting board agenda. In the spirit of public interest in NID directors' individual thoughts on the Centennial Dam, reservoir, and the lovely Dog Bar Bridge, I have a letter from Mr. Scherzinger requesting regular Centennial General Order board items. Thank you."
Good morning, Marin Lipowitz, Grass Valley. I'd like to open with the pledge to the earth. Anyone who'd like to join me? I pledge allegiance to the earth and all the life it supports, one planet in our care, irreplaceable, with sustenance and respect for all. I'd like to speak today on the two things, the appeal process to CWC and the time and expense it'll entail, and wondering if that's a wise move, and something related to that, which is the recreational benefits of the Bear River. And I picked up this little number at C&C, and I was attracted to it because of the salmon theme and the color, orange, salmon. I replaced the salmon with the bear, and he's saying, "Save the bear." And most of it is devoted to the recreational benefits of the river. I devoted 2 panels to the Nisenan Nation because I believe that's not getting enough attention, and I'll address that some other time. Today I want to talk about recreation. When we first moved to California, we lived in Meadow Vista, and the Bear and the American were our rivers. And when I first set foot on the Bear, I was amazed by the rocks. Never seen anything like it. Acres and acres of rocks. And that remains one of my main attractions to the rivers today, is those beautiful rocks and the blackberries. And I love the little dams that the kids build with the rocks. The little dams, love them. And then we have kayaks and tubes and canoes, river floating tubes on the Bear. These are a bunch of people who came up from Sac, from another area, to tube on the Bear. People come from all over. I was in the parking lot one day with the giant bear that I've brought here in my pickup truck, and a woman came up to me in tears from Monterey and said, we have been coming up here to the Bear every year for 20 years. She was in tears at the prospect of losing the bear. So, a reservoir is not a river. That's plain fact. Can't fly fish on it, can't gold pan on it, and I'll leave the rest for another time. Thank you.
Good morning, Board. My name is Sid Brown. I have been attending NID Board committee meetings throughout the last year to educate myself about the inner workings, processes, and mission of the district. I appreciate the complex and essential services that NID provides, and I believe that the employees, management, and elected officials all desire to provide clean and reliable water to NID's customers. And I understand that the district's mission is to provide a dependable, quality water supply, strive to be good stewards of the watersheds, and conserve available resources. And this is from your policy number 1075 in the NID policy manual. Given the NID mission, the district's pursuit of a new dam on the Bear River gives one pause. The proposed Centennial Dam has generated widespread interest, concern, and fears, as evidenced by ongoing press coverage, editorials, and public comments at board and committee meetings. Presentations have been made to community groups, fraternal organizations, and forums. The public has made its interest known at NID board meetings, and unfortunately, the reiterated questions have largely gone unanswered due to the restrictions of not responding to non-agendized items. If one researches the Centennial Dam website for project updates, one learns that the draft EIR is anticipated to be available for public review in the fall of 2017. Well, that needs to be updated, right? And in the news tab for the project website, there's not one piece of news since 2016. And not surprisingly, all of the items in the news links are heavily in support of the Centennial Dam. So if one were to investigate that site, one would think there was absolutely zero concern. So I ask you this. Please consider a standing Centennial agenda item to every NID board meeting under the general orders. That would provide the staff the opportunity to give updates, if any, on the expenditures, grant applications, and progress of the various aspects of this unprecedented, large construction project. If the public were engaged and informed of progress, perhaps some of the genuine fears could be allayed. Absent an ongoing progress reporting, note Centennial was only agendized. May I finish? I just have a few sentences.
Yeah.
Note, Centennial was only agendized 4 times in 2017. The public concerns will only build as the wall of silence hardens while the environmental documents are constructed. So, please use the public interest and build on the momentum created by widespread interest and engagement in your activities. Create a standing Centennial agenda item under general orders and give the public, not only those in the room, mind you, but those at home watching the meetings, real, up-to-date information about a project that is of intense interest to legions of voters and residents both in and outside of the NID service area. Thank you for letting me finish.
Sure.
Good morning, board members and employees, and Kurt.
I'm Mike Pasner, owner of Indian Springs Organic Farm. Been farming with NID water for 32 years in Penn Valley. Yesterday I attended the Maintenance and Resources Committee meeting. I learned that the newly formed Vegetation Working Group doesn't represent a cross-section of NID customers. This working group is not open to the public for participation or scrutiny. This is certainly a problem. This group makeup doesn't lead to transparency or discussion about herbicide use. I've learned that when you email REM or the directors, you should request an answer. Without a reply, you don't know that your agenda request or other correspondence has been received. This is another problem that hinders the transparency. Apparently, it's been going on for quite a while. Thirdly, the Crap Dam, Centennial Reservoir and Power. 2,500 letters were written in 2 days last weekend. Circle's watchdog volunteers collected these letters to the California Water Board, requesting they not fund this dam at all. 2,500 letters in 2 days. This dam is a losing project. It is a shame that you as directors continue to throw good money after bad. This dam is being built for your pride and large housing projects in Lincoln. One cost will be water diverted from agriculture, and another is water diverted from the Yuba River. People where the dam will be built are being coerced into selling their homes to NID. This is all before there is an approved project. It is ratepayers and taxpayers who will pay for this irresponsible and unnecessary project. It is time you realize this project will never be built and quit on it. Your 2 20-minute public comment limits at board meetings should be removed. They're unfair. Very shortly, you'll have way more than 20 minutes worth of comments. And you should hear them, because this is your constituency telling you what they think about this dam project. Thank you.
Good morning to the NID board and everyone else. I am Diana Suarez, Colfax, California. I have created a document entitled Inaccuracies in the Recreational Projection for Future Visitor Days NID Centennial Project. The inaccuracies are within the NID WISUP application, Table Rec-1, revised 08/01/217, Estimate of Recreational Use and Visitor Days at Centennial Reservoir Recreation Facilities. The source document for the table is a 2009 Recreation Use and Visitor Survey used during FERC relicensing, which states, these estimates must be considered very speculative and will only provide a general indication of how recreation use is expected to change over the license period, i.e. 30 to 50 years. Based on a sample of only 96 people, this survey grossly overestimated annual visitor use at Rollins Reservoir, the basis for NID's Centennial Visitor Estimation, compared to actual participant counts at the same facility. The document contains an explanation of the table, column headings, and 3 assumptions that create significant inflation of visitor day outputs. The procedure used to determine the scope of the problem is explained, starting with the collection and use of actual data, including participant counts for the latest 4 years for the Rollins facility. The raw data is tabulated and compared to NID's estimated recreational use and visitor days at Centennial Reservoir Recreation Facilities. The combined total using the actual data showed that 62,978 visitors may come to Centennial in an average year. This compares with the NID estimate of 277,683, a 440% inflation of actual use. These errors in the computation of visitor days will make a huge difference in the public benefit and revenues projected for the Centennial Dam facility. This in turn will drastically overstate the cost-benefit ratio. In conclusion, because the outputs for the table Rec 1 revised estimate of recreational use and visitor days at Centennial Reservoir Recreation Facilities was based on faulty assumptions and inflated occupancy rates, the numbers cannot be used to determine the public benefit ratio with the accuracy that the citizens of the state of California expect from their representatives. A complete electronic copy of the document with attachments has been sent to all your emails. I hope you get them. Thank you.
Connie. Can everyone hear me? I am Wanda Enos Bachelor, and I am Nisinane from Chicopaconde, which is near Mena Vista, and Wakadotna, known as Cement Hill. I'm the great-granddaughter of Lewis Kelly, Chief Laluk of the Nisinan people. I'm here sharing our concerns and issues from the Nisinan perspective. Our families are large and vast, and we have 6 counties, which encompass Placer, Nevada, El Dorado, Sierra, Sutter, Sacramento area. So when we had wind of the Centennial proposal, we had to look deep in our hearts because we're not very highly visible. We are still here, we always will be here, and we're from here. And we have started having family meetings. So my family is very, very concerned, an extended family. You know, we are the indigenous people from this land, and we always have utilized this area. Specifically now that we're talking about Nemseo, which is the general term that we use in our language for Bear River, my great-grandmother, Lizzie Enos, calls it Humanseo, which translates in English to be the river of the roundhouses. I'm very aware that UIAC has sent a letter in regards to not supporting Centennial Dam, as well as letters that were sent to NID in regards to them supporting the non-recognized tribes. I always have this thought that I don't need a piece of paper from anyone telling me that I'm indigenous to this area. And as indigenous people that still practice our cultural lifeways and our songs and dance and ceremonies at Bear River, and as an indigenous person that still gathers roots and herbs and still utilizes Bear River, I cannot put in the English language what I feel in my heart of even proposing such a, and I'll just say it, ridiculous idea in regards to Centennial Dam. Centennial Dam serves no purpose. I would think that you would listen to the constituents that you have in your area in regards to alternatives that would best meet the needs of your population that you have here. More importantly is that we strongly object because we are still utilizing traditional cultural properties for our use. You know, since time immemorial, indigenous peoples have used best practices in regards to how we deal with such things as climate change, etc. But we're here working together in collaboration with the different other entities to support, enhance, and motivate and stay together with a collective voice that we are against Centennial Dam. And you'll see us more regularly. Thank you. Dinga.
Okay, that looks like it. So we'll close public comment, move to the consent agenda. Is there items?
I'd
Nancy.
request that we pull 2 and 5.
Okay.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda absent items 2 and 5.
Second.
Roll call.
Division 1,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 5,
Aye.
Division 4.
Aye. Okay, Nancy? Go ahead.
Just a quick question on number 2, if you want to do that.
Sure.
There aren't many warrants.
We can do
There's
them
only
right
one
now.
variety in there. So what happened?
This is Marvin Davis, Finance Manager. Director Webb, the timing of the warrant disbursements after the end of the year, we were doing so much in our accounting system, and so the next warrant registry, it's going to be a normal registry, so you'll see more warrants on that one.
And so the reason is you were doing what?
We were doing end-of-year closing, and so we hadn't rolled all of our purchase orders over, so we weren't able to liquidate them. Now we've rolled them over, and so we're able to liquidate them now. The
Okay, when
accounting
you
system
get
is
your
kind of
new-
old.
When you get your new software, is that going to do some of this for you so that regardless of what strikes you, you.
It's gonna do a lot of
Yeah.
it for us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Number 5?
Number 5, I think that these, water line extensions need to come before the board in the form of general orders, not just in consent. And I'm not opposed to this at all. I want to see this go forward. But I would ask that you keep the materials for number 5 when we get to district finance water line extension. I think it'll be useful for us to look at what our previous policy has been and what our next one might be. So that's just a request to pull the materials. So with that, I can ask for the approval of, make a motion to approve number 2, the warrants, and number 5, Lodestar Victoria Drive.
Second. I think that's good. That's all right.
Moved in second, roll call.
Division 1?
Aye.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 5?
Aye.
Division 4?
Wait a minute, sorry.
There you go.
Aye. I'm a creature of habit. Next is special orders. We have Dane Waddle from the Special District Leadership Foundation.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, board member, staff, community. I appreciate a few minutes to present. My name is Dane Wadley. I'm a field coordinator on behalf of the California Special Districts Association, here today on behalf of the Special District Leadership Foundation, the foundation arm of CSDA. And here to talk about transparency as well, but to actually award the district a renewal of its District Transparency Certificate of Excellence through our association, CSDA and SDLF in particular.
Hold on.
So
Could you repeat that? Because I didn't hear it. People were...
I am here to
second.
award the district a renewal of its District Transparency Certificate of Excellence through CSDA. We have a program for districts to basically showcase and promote transparency in their operations as a district. So,
See you later, boat owner. Hope you still have your slip at Rollins. Be transparent.
I would note that this is the third time actually the district has received this certificate from us. It's basically the program requires a 2-year renewal, so your certificate's good for every 2 years. And as I said, the district was one of our, I believe, one of our initial ones back in 2013 when the program started to go through this process. So we appreciate you guys continuing your efforts, and of course staff doing the work behind the scenes to keep this certificate updated. I'll go into just a couple points, if you don't mind, about what the certificate entails. As I was kind of commenting to staff, and I tell other districts that I present to, this is not just putting up a website, putting some information on it, and you're good to go. It's much more than that. It does include kind of some basic transparency requirements. So, of course, like things like putting your budget on your website, having the board members' information, the meeting dates, the schedules, etc. It also entails providing current audits, the district rosters, etc. So there's that, and then finally the outreach requirements are you have to have like an annual budget meeting, which of course you do, then include like a regular district newsletter, or have a kind of community transparency review, as we call it. So as I said, it's not just putting a website up, putting some names on it. It's something that you should be commended on. Boards, obviously, for your support of doing this. Staff, of course, for the work behind the scenes to comply with all the requirements. So I think we all understand the importance of transparency. It promotes obviously accountability as a district with the community, and it's obviously an ongoing issue that all of us in the special district world will continue to promote going forward. I know it's a big part of what our organization does, and that's one of the things I want to just highlight real quick is that. Obviously this is an accomplishment for itself, but you guys are a member of CSDA. One of the things that CSDA does for districts is legislative advocacy down in Sacramento in the Capitol, and a lot of the pushback, if you will, that we get from state legislators is, well, what are these special districts doing? Are they following the laws that we've put in place? Are they following best practices, et cetera? And do we need to put more requirements on them? And we, of course, generally push back on those things with the whole idea of local control. And when we have districts that have gone through these programs and continue to maintain, their transparency certificate, it sure makes our case a lot easier in the Capitol when we're kind of pushing back on these things to say, no, we have districts who are going through transparency certificates. They're being active and proactive in communicating with their communities and doing that work. So thank you as your advocate in Sacramento for doing this, because as I said, it sure helps our advocacy efforts in the state capitol. So with that, unless there's any questions, I just make the, go ahead. If there's any questions.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Comments?
No, I have only answers. I know, I'm smart mouth.
That was really good.
Do you have any questions?
Perhaps,
Comments?
on a related, so SDLA?
Well, this is through the Special District Leadership Foundation. We have kind of sister organizations of CSDA. This is one of them, our foundation arm.
And don't we get by the directors investing time in some of these programs, not the transparency one specifically, I'm going off on a tangent here. Aren't we encouraged to help the district cut insurance costs and things by doing some of the, is this the same?
That's correct.
Sisters?
So
And so to that point, are these, that I was going over my materials, things we should be looking at attending with a benefit to the district?
Yes.
I brought them because yeah, okay. Just related.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No,
It was
and
a question I had last night looking
Yeah,
at
you answered the question for me, so it's great. All right.
Those are those. This is the same thing.
Nick?
No, thank you. You answered my questions.
Very good. Well, then on that, we have a little certificate here for the district. Congratulations on, once again, earning the District Transparency Certificate of Excellence, to say that very slowly, as you can imagine, through the Special District Leadership Foundation, and appreciate you guys' work.
Sorry to interrupt. I do have one question.
Oh, sure.
How many organizations get this award approximately each year?
Why?
Percentage?
It's not a lot. It's growing, I will say that. The program's only been in existence since 2013, so I unfortunately don't have an exact number for you. But
it's not an automatic then?
I'm sorry?
It's obviously not an automatic.
It's not an automatic by any stretch, no.
Okay, you mentioned the criteria that you went through.
Right, right. And as I said, I think you guys may be the only district that I've done a number of these presentations. This is the third time that you guys have done this. So you've been a kind of a pioneer from the beginning of this program in 2013. So
okay.
We sure appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Maybe another way of asking the same question is what percentage of CSDA members achieve this?
Yeah,
just off the
I mean,
cuff.
I would
5%?
No, I'd say it's more than that. Maybe 20, 25, something like that.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you for
Very
coming.
good.
Do you want to take a picture handing that or something?
If you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, get a
Chair.
Board chair.
You're
Oh,
the chair.
me too?
You're the man.
Oh,
Photo
okay.
op. You're the chair.
Here?
Right over there.
Ho, ho, ho.
Scott, did you have a good time?
Very nice. How'd you came with the list? On many levels.
Are we having public comment on this item? Yeah.
You can make it brief, sure. Go ahead.
I congratulate you on the Transparency Award, and I congratulate all of us, Nicole Ragland, Grass Valley, congratulate all of us for pushing for the transparency every 2 weeks. I would also like to request that when we have one of our first peoples here, that we don't shout at them as they're leaving the room. That was extremely,
Rude the way she left.
that was extremely
Okay. Gentleman was
disrespectful to
talking.
a
Okay, that's
people,
One
who have
after
faced genocide, who have had their federal recognition
hold on
stripped.
one second.
It was extremely disrespectful for one man to speak to
Suarez
an
is who was getting
to
up,
whoever it was.
Okay.
It was
So let's be
disrespectful
clear.
and not necessary.
Okay, thank you.
She
Mr.
could have waited,
Miller.
she could have waited till the pause,
Thank you.
which would be common courtesy,
That's enough. Hold on a second.
because we are all just humans.
Yeah, hold on a
Exactly.
second. Let me ask a question to Dustin. Is there public comment in this period here?
Well,
Is it up to
Well,
my discretion?
It's your discretion.
It's agendized.
it's just,
Yes, but it's not an item of business.
it's just.
Yeah.
In the interest of transparency,
okay.
these people need to speak.
Yeah, I think we
Sure, I
should.
understand that. I understand that, but I just didn't want to get them off topic is what I was referring
I
to.
know.
I just wanted to ensure that it remained on the topic, because we kind of left the topic here a second ago. So I just want to make sure that we're on the topic of that, okay? So go ahead.
Thank you, Mike Pasner. To give NID an award for transparency is the height of bureaucracy. 1 year it took to get live streaming, emails that don't get received, working groups without public input, 20-minute limits on public input to the board with another 20-minute limit per item. It's going to be terrible PR when the dam really gets going and people really come out. No, you
Mike.
shouldn't be receiving
Thanks.
a transparency award.
Okay, thank you.
Betsy Lombard, Nevada City, California. I'd like to say in terms of transparency that I believe the rules of basic courtesy should be observed
Okay.
here, and I don't believe that they're observed. Mr. Miller sits through the meeting with his eyes closed. Eyes closed. You guys feel free to interrupt the public whenever they're commenting if our comments don't suit you. You interrupt Ms. Weber frequently. She starts a sentence, you cut her off.
I think we're getting a little
Not
off.
good conduct.
No,
We're
I'm
talking
sorry.
about transparency, correct?
Well,
That's the
yeah,
subject.
but I think we're getting a little
That's
off
my
topic.
comment, and I'd appreciate if you don't interrupt me as well.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Way it goes.
Marin Lipowitz, Grass Valley. Transparency, yes, I would like to see more transparency in regard to the effect that this project has on the Nisenan Nation. We haven't heard enough about that. This book, River of Sorrows, is about the genocide of the Nisenan. Transparency, what are we doing? Are we creating another river of sorrows for these people who have lived riverside where we live for millennia? Thank you.
Thanks.
Diana Suarez, Colfax, California. I couldn't handle it when the guy gave you that award. But anyway, I would like to talk about parking. I mean, from painting the curb red to blocking off parking spots to parking NID trucks in empty parking spots to...
That's public comment. Doing public comment, okay?
Transparency, the
I don't know
public,
that that has
parking, making
anything
it
to
to
do-
meetings. When Carmen tried to sit on that table after she had stood for an hour in here, and she finally sat on the table because you guys didn't provide any sitting, and then John Drew yelled at her and told her to get off the table. She's a ratepayer. She's one of your, that's not transparency. And interrupting people, making comments toward the public, which has been going on from when I first started coming here, getting up rudely and getting coffee in the middle of somebody talking, sitting there and sleeping. What kind of treatment? I'm glad I am not a ratepayer for NID. I am glad, and every time I come here, I'm glad. I only come here for one issue, and I'm not concerned about your other issues. I wish you the best. I wish your ratepayers the best, and I hope that you become a board that's responsible, transparent, and listens. That's the other thing I've noticed. These people act like they're above the ratepayers and no more, and do not listen to your constituents. I'm on the other side, but I am a human being, and I deserve to be listened to. And these guys pay your salaries. They deserve to be listened to and treated in a polite way. I'm appalled at the behavior of this board toward the public and the people that come up here to comment. Thank you.
Ms. Suarez?
Thank you.
You want to have it?
No, I
Was
don't
that gracious when this guy was talking and you got up and walked out?
I'm sorry, it was more than I...
Okay, that's it. Let's go to general
We're
orders.
not in public comment, we're on an agendized topic.
Yeah, I know.
Good call, though.
And yes, I did work last night. We had a headache. So we will finish.
Okay, good morning, board, staff, and public. I'm Chip Close, the Water Operations Manager. As you may recall, at the December 13th, 2017 board meeting, staff reviewed the District Finance Waterline Extension Program with the board. We reviewed the amount of funding that the district has dedicated to extending treated water lines into neighborhoods where property owners have expressed an interest. We also reviewed the success rate and found that despite nearly $1 million we dedicate to this program every year, that the success rate has been limited. The program seems to work best in neighborhoods with short pipeline runs and multiple parcels to connect to. And this is successful in these scenarios because that formula basically keeps the costs down and leads to more participation. Lately, it seems that the neighborhoods expressing interest in this program seem to be larger lots with long pipeline runs, which lead to higher participation costs and thus lesser success rates. Because of this, the board has asked staff to go back and find ways that scenarios where we can make this program more palatable to the participants. So we went back to the drawing board, held a brainstorming session to come up with different scenarios that could assist participants on the financials. Staff then took these scenarios to APC and received a recommendation for expanding the financing terms from a maximum of $30,000 for 20 years to changing to 90% of total participant costs and expanding those to a 30-year term. I have provided a comparison of the proposed financial terms versus the existing terms in the staff report, and we'll go over those here a little bit more in detail in just a minute. One of the major changes of this proposal is that the out-of-pocket expenses are drastically reduced. If you look in the staff report on page 2, we have provided a comparison of the last 5 district finance waterline projects and provided you a scenario of the current program versus what we're proposing for you today, and provided you an example of how the costs change. If I can direct you to the top left corner, it's the Victoria Lodestar project, which is the one which was in the consent agenda today. If you look at the cost for those folks under the current policy, their cost per parcel is $54,585. Under the current proposal, their out-of-pocket cost is $24,585. That's a very large chunk of change for people to come up with right out of their pocket. Their maximum amount financed is $30,000, and their monthly payment is $182. With the proposal we've brought before you today, we're changing all of that to the 90% financed for a 30-year term. What that equates to is that the per parcel amount stays the same, but if you look, their out-of-pocket costs are drastically reduced from $24,000 down to $5,459. So a lot easier, but a lot more palatable for the folks to come up with a smaller amount. The amount financed, however, obviously is increased. It goes from $30,000 to $49,000. But because the term is a bit longer, their monthly payment isn't as bad. It's jumping up, sure, from $182 to $235, but the longer terms from 20 to 30 years helps break that down a little bit more as well. So in addition to those financial changes, staff is also recommending that we change the neighborhood participation rate from 60% to at least 50%. This allows a little more flexibility in participation numbers, but makes sure a majority of the neighborhood still wants us there. Now, as I've pointed out in the staff report, there are risks to this. However, the risks that the district has before them is not changing. What is changing, though, is the amount of potential default on some of these loans. As you recall, the current program, the maximum amount to be financed is $30,000. The proposal before you today allows folks to finance much more than that. And so if they were to default, it would be a higher monetary value in default to the district with the new proposed policy. How we handle delinquent accounts, basically, we could remove the meter. We generally try not to do that if it's their only source of supply. The other avenue we have is to accumulate the delinquency amounts and then put them on the tax roll and collect our monies that way. In addition, the agreement is a due on sale clause. So when these parcels change ownerships, the district will get its money back that way as well. So there is some coverage there. Last but not least, the one area where the district is at risk of not capturing its delinquencies is under a bankruptcy. Under a bankruptcy, the loan can be discharged and the district may not be able to collect its funds. However, we have not run into that yet to this point, so it seems to be a fairly low occurrence. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Nancy, you want to go first?
Somebody else is up there. Go ahead, Janet.
Go ahead, Director Wilcox.
Okay. We discussed this in some detail at the December board meeting. I remember at that time I talked about the various knobs that we have.
Yes.
I put it in terms of knobs, and Ricky put it in some other more technical term, which is better, but I still think in terms of a black box with knobs, because I'm not really a financial person. What you're proposing is essentially a readjustment of the knobs. And my impression is that with this policy, the knobs are turned about as far as they can go?
Yes. There is one avenue that you mentioned that we have not gone into detail in exploring yet.
Okay, well, great. Address that. So
And
I
that would
don't
be
have to
the
ask
disadvantaged communities. And that is something that we are still working on.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I think we're looking at it on a more global scale so that it's not just DFWLE, it's all of our reimbursements. And so there's an opportunity to expand that into anybody who's doing financing through the district. So we're still looking into that.
Great.
We haven't got far enough along to bring that to the board level yet.
And I appreciate that. So to me, this proposal is a turning of the knobs to their extreme levels. And we're not really changing any of the theories behind our financing scheme. And so I feel that I can go along with this. But point out that we are reaching a point of diminishing returns in how far we can turn these knobs.
Yes, and I think the one
without straying into kind of a gray area of giving public funds.
Sure. The goal is to be reimbursed for our costs someday, but
So
we
I
are
think this
using
is fully
tax
in
funds.
line
So.
with what we've done in the past, and so I would support this.
Thank you.
Director Weber?
Yes. This is a drastic change, and I'm very grateful to see it happen after years of working on it. I do have some more recommendations. I don't think this is enough. You'll think there she goes again, but I don't think it's enough. One problem that we hit on one of the water line extensions was very obvious that they just would not continue if it were a due on sale. In other words, when they sell their house, they have to pay off the amount. And so in a sense, we're devaluing their property. We're giving them a valuable asset. I mean, not giving, they're helping on it. But we are devaluing their property because they have to pay it off. So that's a crucial factor, that we have to be able to do something with that. We've been told before that legally that would put us in jeopardy if there were bankruptcies, defaults, that sort of thing. But it seems to me that the land needs water, and that whatever is going to happen to that piece of property, it's going to be of value, and we can get that money back through the value of the water to the land. And that's just, that's really layman stuff.
Through increased valuation of the property.
No, I mean, somewhere we would get the money back because the land is valuable. Somebody would buy it. They would need water.
All right.
And then we would be able, we're not going to give them the water until they pay the debt.
Yes.
Okay. I think the figures always need to be considered in relationship to the capacity fees, which are another $10,000, give or take, maybe $12,000, so that this isn't the actual cost, right?
This would include all fees. So
capacity fees too?
Capacity fees,
Okay.
reimbursement fees, you'll be allowed to finance it up to 90%.
Good. Wait a minute, I want to be sure I can read my awful writing. The capacity fees, are they frozen, the amount they raise each year, so are they frozen at the time somebody applies, if they wait 2 years on the waiting list?
Once the project is complete and, well, maybe I should defer to Shannon for this, she knows the details, but come on up, Shannon.
They're not frozen at the time that they're put on a waiting list, but once there's a commitment of the project and we're in the funding agreement.
Okay, so that,
as an example, Table Meadows, our last project, took 2 years to go through design and construction and whatnot, and that they have paid capacity fees from 2015.
so at the point they are actually committed, that's when...
Signing the funding agreement,
Okay,
yes.
and then the capacity fees do not escalate over the, that's great. Okay. The interest rate. We're charging 4%, I believe. We do know that the Clean Water Act money was at 2.29% or 2.29%, I can't remember, something close to that. That makes a terrific difference. Our LAIF money, which is our secure money, right, Marvin? Is that our secure money that is very predictable in terms of...
That's our short-term.
Yeah. Okay.
These are financed long-term.
And how much do we get from...
It's about, right now, about 1.3%.
So if one of our investments is 1.3%, why would we not reduce the interest rate from 4% down to something like 2%?
It's, you typically match the percentage rate with the length of the infrastructure you're financing. And the longer-term interest rates right now, about 2.75% for federal agencies.
Hold on, Director Weber, the 4% is set by board policy. It's up to the board to decide what that.
But we can change that.
Yes.
Because it is board policy. And so that's another factor. I think we need, you folks are all aware, all the board members and all the staff members are aware of the threat of not being able to get fire insurance. And these people have been paying taxes without having any water delivered to their property for years. If they've lived there years, at least somebody's paid it on the property. So we should not be trying to make money off them. I realize in the broad terms we're not making money off them, we're providing a service. But I would like us to look at reducing that interest rate from 4% down. And then I think there's going to be a surge of applications, and there's a shortage of money. It's not a great shortage, but it's not a great amount of money. So NID holds real estate that we don't need. It was purchased for other purposes, which I won't go into, years ago. Sometimes I know too much. Years ago, and it can be sold, and that could be used to finance this. So I would ask that we look into that, and I know that's on a long list that Greg has, and his list is long. I would like to be able to move that up in some way so that we have the financing. You get people primed to go with this, and you know how, well, I lived on a private road association. People are all hot for it for a while, but 2 years later, it's like, really? So I think you have to strike while the fire's hot, and we really need to be able to move quicker than 2 years. And a lot of people haven't been 2 years, but that's too long. And so we either put more money out of our other, when we budget, or we sell the real estate to get it going. So those are my requests, please.
I appreciate that. I will remind you that the fund is fully allocated right now, along with a full reserves waiting in the wing. So I appreciate your comment, and hopefully we'll get some success on these projects, and we'll deplete those funds rapidly and can look into other alternatives. But as of right now, we are fully flush with funds ready to go. And the success rate, we've been around 2 projects a year. That seems to be about the pace at which we're going. I don't want to speak for Gary in construction side of it, but just on the administrative and policy side of it, that's probably about maximum speed, is 2 of these projects a year, as far as getting them in the queue, getting them signed up, getting them signed on to the agreement. So hopefully that is meeting with your approval in that regard.
Well, it isn't my approval, it's what's happening in the world out there.
Sure.
Lloyd's of London is now where you go to get insurance if you're canceled, and people are being canceled right and left. thanks to a friend's research, Nevada County has the third highest risk rating in the state for fire. So this is a problem where 2 a year isn't going to do it. We're going to need to find another way to do more than 2 projects a year. So I'd be happy to be part of the solution if I could. Some of the knowledge I don't have, but I'm sure we can tap people who have that knowledge. We deserve to do this for the community. We deserve to do this for the people who've been paying taxes.
Okay.
Thank you.
To those,
Director Drew?
to those concerns, Nancy, I think those are probably good ideas. And the steps that we're taking today are huge steps in that
I agree.
direction. And we're not stuck in concrete. We can continue to move forward. And those things have gone on a list, so we'll deal with them as necessary. But I think the steps that we're taking today are huge and very meaningful.
I do too, and I want to recognize that.
Okay. All right.
Director Wilcox?
Sorry to pipe up again. I think Director Weber's comments about
Yes,
the interest.
sir, please, I can't hear you.
Please don't. This doesn't really amplify. I'll try and speak up. Thank you. I think Director Weber's comments regarding the short-term and long-term interest rate are quite appropriate. And that's another one of the knobs that I hadn't considered. And just speaking for myself, I certainly have no objection to changing. I mean, this really is a long-term proposition, and I wouldn't object to having the interest rate set at the long-term LAIF rate. That makes everything consistent, I think. Secondly, I'm curious what your sense is on how these changes might have affected projects that have failed in the past. So in other words, are we turning the knobs to no avail, or is this going to make some of the projects viable that weren't otherwise viable? And I know that's a subjective thing. I'm just wondering what your gut feeling is on that.
It's a great question, and as you pointed out, the answer is variable depending on the groups. I can say that we've had a lot of groups come to us specifically only for fire protection. They weren't really interested in water for their homes. And when they saw the cost to extend a water line into the neighborhood, they decided that the cost per parcel was too great for just for fire protection, and so they backed off. Now, had they had the availability to finance more and push those costs out for multiple years, and with the new increased threat of losing your insurance, that answer may be different today. It's very hard to say. There's places with great wells that are really only there for the fire, only talking to us about fire hydrants. There's other places, however, where they desperately need water. Their wells have gone bad. They've drilled multiple wells and haven't got good quality. Those folks, this will be a great benefit to them, but I think they would have participated regardless.
Director Mill?
So, I want to thank staff, and thank everybody for this. We started off a long time ago, and we were keeping the numbers small because we didn't know what vulnerability we were putting the district under. Bankruptcies were rampant back when we were getting some of these real things accomplished. So this bumping up of I thought it was going to be 45,000, I heard, and then I read in the packet 40. So one of my questions, which I think I've heard the answer to here, was I didn't understand the 90% thing. So the 90% is so that the people can fold in the fees?
Yeah, so basically all connection costs and fees and reimbursements can be financed up to 90%.
Is why they say it that way?
Yeah.
Because that's what I was kind of going, well, what are we doing here? Are we going up or are we doing 90%? So it's
90%.
both?
90% of both.
And we went to 40 grand on the pipes?
No, basically your reimbursement fee to connect to our pipe and connection fee and capacity fee can all be financed up to 90%.
So the capitation of this at $45,000 or $40,000 is
There's
moot?
no longer a cap.
It was in the packet and I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah.
So the 90% is the, what wins?
That is the new threshold.
Okay. And then you know, Nick, in his initial thing, brought up the gift of public funds, and Nancy brings up the interest rate. At the time, the prevailing interest rates were 6%, and we were trying to be beneficial and come in under that. The old board would go with Bank of America. So, on the other hand, you get into these lunchtime discussions as I advocate for constituents on these two projects are both in my division. It's nice to be able to look at Marvin and go, how do you like that 4%? And he says thumbs up. So I hear everybody, I'm amenable, but it's been a good tool. You know, text Rem later and say, you know, I just love applying that 4%. It wins the discussion in that we're not doing anything bad, we're helping the district. Your points sound like it's rallying, and I'm not against it. This is just the history of how this all got there. And then the 90% was my question. So, again, thank you. I think staff is working really hard to try and make this knobs, whatever you want to call it. It continues to evolve. The big nut was getting it started in the first place, because Nancy and I collaborated on that a long time ago to kind of bust through with everybody. So, thank you for continuing to be open-minded, and see you in the future.
Welcome back.
So, may I, again, I'll be quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
There is an urgency out there with people who are losing their fire insurance, and I don't hear that urgency here within the staff. I don't mean to demean what you've done, it's great, but we do need to move it. This can't be timelined out, you know, as a meeting occurs, whatever. We have to move on a pretty tight timeline to be able to respond to the needs of the constituents. And believe me, the rate of canceling fire insurance policies has accelerated in the last 2 years, even more so this year. And we are going to have this room packed full of people who have finally figured out that they pay taxes for NID and they can't get any water and they can't get any fire insurance. And where are they going to go? To the people who can supply the water. That's the solution. So please accelerate this process somehow. That's the one thing I didn't really ask for directly, so I'm asking for that now. Give us a timeline, bring us back some information as soon as you can, please.
Okay, so I have a to-do list. Accelerate the process, review potentially reducing the interest rate, look at sale of real estate lands to help fund this program.
And
more than 2 projects a year potentially, but that goes with accelerate the process. Okay.
And due on sale?
Due on sale, I have that as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
I think we discussed in the APC meeting the issue with the due on sale clause. And I think we found it difficult to be able to put a covenant on the property where the person assumes that debt.
Right.
And I think that's the issue here, is a covenant that runs with the land. Is that
we will have to
what we're dealing with, right?
Yeah, Dustin Cooper, District Council. I don't want to throw cold water on it. We'll look at it, but I do have some concerns.
About the covenant run with the land?
That's right, yeah. So due on sale, you've got a current property owner, an agreement with that current property owner.
Yeah.
If there's a successor property owner, you no longer have a contractual relationship with them.
But you do have a big power, because unless they can get a decent well, which is dicey in the foothills, they don't have any water. So the value of that property is not very great without water. So there is a hold. Now, how you can do that legally, I'd really appreciate it. Yeah, Dustin, if you would explore that.
Absolutely.
With some experts in the field where this is their primary orientation.
Yeah, and Chip and I, staff and I, we had a lot of discussions about this behind the scenes before it was brought to you, so.
But I'm asking you to go outside of the current thinking pattern and see if you can find a more creative way to protect us, because certainly I want to protect NID's assets.
I think that's the excellent point here, is it's not so much what's legally appropriate or not, it's more of a question of how much risk do you want to take?
Right.
So that's a discussion I don't want to have without informing you of how risky that would be, so.
Thank you.
So I think I have a very clear to-do list, but if I may, I'd like to tee up the recommendation for you guys, and then maybe we can go to public comment, but
Right.
basically what staff is
Could I-
recommending.
Can I, one more thing here?
Yeah, sure. Oh, sorry.
Nancy, you mentioned that they have an issue with fire insurance. Does that affect those individuals that have raw water over there? And, you know, I don't know the percentage, but I mean,
Well,
there's
yes.
canals going
Yes.
through Nevada County.
Personally, yes.
So it isn't.
What they're requiring,
Uh-huh.
I heard a fellow from Allstate speak at Banner Mountain Homeowners last spring. He works on the Fire Safe Council, has for years, and he said they're requiring that you be within so many feet, I can't remember whether it's 1,000 or 1,500 from pressurized water. So raw water doesn't give the same fire flow, and they're not willing to accept that.
Unless you put a tank in or something.
Well, our neighborhood
No.
looked at that,
No.
put it in a cistern, and it's not,
No.
It doesn't work.
No.
They don't rely on it, yeah.
Unfortunately, the tanks leak.
Yeah.
That's,
just-
yeah,
it's
underground,
all about-
above ground, whatever.
But it's statewide, is the other, I mean, it's not just here, it's everywhere these days.
Yeah, well, but we have, you know, third highest
Right.
fire risk rating in the state.
Yeah.
Montecito's gonna be added next week, you know, with the fires
You know,
down
I-
there, but it's a statewide issue, because I've explored it, I haven't been terminated,
Yeah.
but, explored, boy, this rate keeps going up, and you call people, and they've got, I forget, it's an R10 or R7 or R1 through 10, and boom, yep, right away, we're in R7 or something by being in the county. The question of a fire hydrant is exactly what they ask, and, yeah, so, but it's statewide.
Yeah.
So we can help ours, but it's almost like we should be lobbying at a higher level.
The insurance people are lobbying hard.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
they have
I
a
mean-
commission that meets, like an ad hoc as well as their formal, yeah,
No, I concur with what you say about fire protection.
thank you.
It's important. Okay, Chip?
Okay,
You're
so
on.
staff is recommending the approval of an amendment to the district rules and regulation, district finance water line extensions, and DFWLE funding agreements allowing for financing up to 90% of participant fees, extending the term to 30 years, and adjusting the neighborhood participation levels to at least 50% as recommended by the Administrative Practices Committee.
So
Thank you.
moved.
Second.
Any public comment?
Thank you. Good morning, Board. Ricky Heck, Grass Valley. First of all, thank you so much. Thanks for the leadership of Nancy Weber and Director Miller. I know you guys have worked on this for a few years and advocated for your neighborhoods, and personally, I can't think of anything more important than getting these water lines extended and helping our neighborhoods with their fire protection and drought protection, actually, as well. I did want to speak, because I'm a numbers person, I wanted to speak about, just to give you an example, using your Lodestar example at 90% max financing, a 30-year term, you've got $49,127. Well, if that's financed at 4%, the amount paid back over 30 years would be $58,000 to the district, and then you would get your original principal back of $49,000. So I think there is an argument there for dropping that interest rate. I wouldn't want to see the district necessarily have to make money off of this. The idea is to provide the service, cover your costs, but that's kind of a big differential between the difference between 2% and 4%. So I would encourage you to also drop that interest rate. It's a public service.
And again, back in the day in its inception, the going interest rate was 6% out there.
Sure.
So we were doing that, so it's one of these things that could be
I get the history,
Yeah.
but even at the days of 6%, I believe the mission of the district is to provide a service for your customers, and so 2% may have even been appropriate in the days of 6%, but that's a policy. That's a policy thing.
Wasn't gonna happen, was it?
So,
Long story.
anyway, I would ask that you give real thought and perhaps agendize that.
2020, thank you.
Yeah, that's right. So then I wanted to know what happens with folks who have paid their taxes. I know there are a lot of them who've been paying taxes to the district for many years, do not have services. Will they be credited? You know, if they come in to one of these water line extensions, will they get any credit for those amounts of money that they've been paying in?
Isn't that the SAR report that we just reviewed?
It's not, well, I shouldn't answer. Go ahead, Ram.
That was covered in the Sowers report, as long as the district is investing roughly so the Sowers report said that that up to 20% would be part of that process, and that you couldn't go back, was it 5 years or more, in terms of looking at numbers that you could carry forward. And so the district is currently investing well over that 20% into the community. So it isn't specific to each one of these property owners, but they're getting the hydrants for free, they're getting the engineering for free, they're getting all of the construction preparation for free. So that's where that increment is happening.
Okay. And lastly, when I was at the APC meeting when this was discussed, and I'm curious about the process for the lien. In my real estate brain, I'm thinking, because people compared this to like a deed of trust or a mortgage that then, runs with the property, or like Mello-Roos bonds that run with the land. Is there a reason why these amounts can't be liened and run with the property, so that successive owners then are continuing to pay back for the benefit of the connection?
Yes, because it's not one of those things. Mello-Roos taxes or a deed of trust, there's very specific provisions that allow that. This is outside of that box. So I want to look at that. I'll
Spoken like a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not one of those things.
Right. Well, it seems like if there was a way, it would obviously eliminate bankruptcy risk. If you could just lien and run with the property, right?
Not necessarily.
Kind of. Kind of. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you all. This is a wonderful step forward. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Little bit of recreating the wheel on it. It's worth a new look, but Nancy will tell you, we did invest. The bankruptcy was a huge part of it all back, because everybody was going under. So it was all that at the same time, but we can sort of look at it again, but.
He can talk forever,
Please
so I'll just start,
Please state your name.
State your name, sir.
Steve French. I'm a member of one of these. And to answer your question about how this would affect the success rate of some of these, obviously you don't know the past, but the one Table Meadows project, as you can imagine, you have this belief that you're going to finance this much, blah, 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 and all of a sudden you get the letter going, we got your water, we're ready to go, give us $11,000, and away we go. What? So this will drastically affect the success rate of that particular project, I'm positive. Some of the others, I have to believe, if you're given the option of financing something at 4% or whatever it may end up, or having to come up with 11 grand. A lot of people don't have 11 grand to, put up front for water, so that'll make a big difference. Couple things, the due on sale that's been discussed. I'm hoping that there's some way, like we have a road maintenance agreement. We form a, road committee. So perhaps there's some way to form a, Table Meadow Water District, something like that, where you can put the $190 a month, just like taxes, on, on the real property, and hopefully work it out that way, because I think it'd be a real deterrent if you get ready to sell in 2 years and you say, well, you got to pay off the $43,000 that's remaining, on the, to NID. So, and one other thing I wanted to clarify. So there are some people that have paid $10,900 something that at that point in time, this was not a possibility to finance this extra amount. So we're hoping, and we understand that those folks will be given the opportunity to get their money back and finance the total amount of, in this case, the $39,753. Is that the case?
I believe it was mentioned in the packet, wasn't it?
Chip can answer that.
So it's the board's discretion to grandfather the Table Meadows project into this program. Staff would ask that if the board would like to do that, that's fine with us. Only that if there are members of the Table Meadows project that would like to move to the new financing, that they pay the $150 recording fee that's necessary to change from the existing agreement
and I would make an appeal to the board to be sympathetic. This is, somebody was making a presentation and said sometimes it goes on for 2 years. Normally, I guess it was Chip. This group was snagged and delayed. We initially had an engineering issue with regard to hydrology, that we couldn't take off of the Forest Lake School because the hydrology wasn't right, so then we had to do the scooter bug. And then the very wet winter came through, and the construction itself had to be shut down several different times. So their variance, if you would, and I'm appealing to the board, boy, they've been in the lurch here, and that's kind of why I think a lot of people forgot the capacity fees. It came up 2.5 years later, and they go, oh, wait, you signed that way back then. And so, as opposed to, well, we're moving forward, and I thought it was in the packet, but I guess.
Go ahead, Rem. You want to speak, Rem?
I think it said in the packet, those that haven't been completed would be allowed.
I think the fair thing is to allow them that.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
On the
Yeah, I think, yeah,
I'm
and
familiar
our
with your long
verbal understanding was that that would happen. In the interest, as you mentioned, Nancy, there's a few of us, I went ahead and paid it. I don't have a horrible well, but some of the people that had horrible well went ahead and paid it with the understanding that they could get it back. They would prefer to do the greater financing, but they came up with a way to, you know, get the, I think it's $10,900 some dollars, because they needed the water right away, so.
Yeah.
Chip, we're gonna put that on your list.
And I'm singing to a favorable crowd here perhaps with the board, but again, the way all these things came up, all along was, I'd ask the constituents, well, what's the problem with old Glenn Fuller and all these different projects? They'd say, well, your reimbursement's too short, you know, so it's the people using it that are able to give us the input as to what needs to be
Exactly.
done. So that's what I say, you know, these guys have highlighted this particular subject, this particular group, so hopefully I'm singing to the choir, but his question remains, do we address that at this time?
That was the question, yeah. I don't know.
Chip, can you respond to that? Because Chip and I had a discussion about this, and I thought that was how you would implement it.
Yes. So, it does state in the staff report that we recommend this for any project that is not complete.
Not complete, that's what I read.
Table Meadows is complete as far as construction now goes, but we have not collected all of the funding, the remaining funding from the participants. So in my purview, that's not necessarily complete. Granted, they have signed the agreements and the contracts, but we haven't finished the collection of funds. So I would lean towards, okay, they're not done yet, let's go ahead and extend this to them. All the other groups previous to this,
they
they're
might not
done.
need a
Funding's been
variance.
paid, they're locked, their agreements are underway, they're making payments. It would be a nightmare to reopen
Yeah,
those.
you can't go back there, so,
They can come back in again if they fail.
again, you're suggesting I don't need to appeal to the board for a variance for this particular group, which was the impetus for a lot of these changes.
We can work together well.
Well, he's saying,
Okay. Well, everybody, in
Should we do it here?
discussion with council, the motion can stand, and the Table Meadows group can renegotiate their contract.
would be allowed to
Yes,
do this.
yes.
That's cool with the
All right.
board?
That's cool.
Okay,
Okay.
my neighborhood, I'm advocating for my constituents,
Okay.
to be clear.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
fair.
Okay. I
Thank
think-
you, board, thank you, Scott.
We haven't voted
Nancy, you referred to, you have no idea. Again, I don't have a horrible well, but there's people out there with salt wells been trucking in water for years and years, so thank you very much.
It is South County, yes.
Okay.
Richard Thomas, a Red Hill Ditch raw water customer off Indian Flat Road in Nevada City. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the board for their direction moving this way, thank staff. It's very reassuring to see Marvin sitting here nodding and smiling through this. So, having his thumbs up on this whole thing makes me feel real good. Years ago, I went through this battle with my very small neighborhood, and we all had raw water, but we didn't have good wells. And I tried to organize my neighborhood, and they said, well, my well's good enough, and it wasn't that big a deal, but there was no funding mechanism available other than our own ability to fund it ourselves. So we didn't do it, and I went ahead and had to drill a well, and I got real lucky, and I got good water. So that was fortunate, but it didn't necessarily mean it was going to turn out that way. So big thumbs up to everybody involved, and I particularly appreciate Nancy's push today, her questions, her comments, to get this whole issue discussed in detail here in the board meeting, so that those of us are here, those of us that can access this on the video, can understand the complexity of the issues, some of the considerations that we're going to continue to have as we move forward. So, giant thumbs up to everybody.
Okay, no more public comment. We have a motion and a second still. Okay, roll call.
Division 1?
Aye.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 5?
Aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
General Manager's report.
Morning, Board. It's my pleasure to update you on a few items this morning. My
If you have
normal
to
list.
take credit
The district currently has 200.
If you have to take credit for it, get it.
Thank you. The district currently has 228,301 acre feet in storage. This is well above our average, 141%, but we're below our capacity at this point, so we're watching these storms. Our current storm window.
Are we at? What'd you say we're at?
228,301.
So we're at what percent?
We're at 141% of average.
Oh.
85% of capacity. That's particularly alarming as our snowpack isn't fantastic at this point. We're below average, well below average, and our rain gauges are below average. So we have a lot of water that we're carrying from last year, but it means that the state, which is headed towards another drought, is going to be looking to potentially cause statewide regulation. So
Non-diversion of our resource, et cetera.
Yeah. Also, the Bowman Lake precip gauge is currently at 31 inches, 31.73 inches, which is just under average for us at this time of year. And then, as I mentioned, our look ahead shows that there's a little bit of water, but our 3-month look ahead is currently looking at equal chances wet or dry. But the 8th station index for the Sierras is below average at this point, and the snow index is below average. We've scheduled meetings with our legislative members to discuss SB 623, that's the water tax. We continue to try to advocate for that at the legislative level, as well as the long-term conservation regulations, which are all kinds of moving around. As mentioned by Tracy, we did meet with CWC staff. It was a sanitized and less than fruitful meeting, as staff was not allowed to discuss the package. They weren't allowed to discuss anything. So we really walked away just knowing that we were going to get our answer, and that we know that at this point, half of the applicants have a public benefits ratio of 0. We know that no packages have a benefits ratio of 1, and that most are below, the remaining balance are below 5. So all of the applicants are in trouble as it relates to this process. We also are aware that while it gives the appearance of a public process, clearly the controls around it are not allowing either the NGOs or the project proponents to really speak to staff and understand how these applications are moving forward. So it'll be definitely an interesting February. We have got our scope of work for the third-party audit. That'll be going to the APC in February, and most likely onto the board. We have received Ms. Suarez's recreation paperwork. We're going to review that internally. It has potentially we look forward to reviewing it because it could have a direct impact on our FERC licensing and on the assumptions that were made in the FERC licensing. Potentially, if Diane's numbers are correct and accurate, we may actually go back and remove some of the recreation opportunities that were sought by FERC, because if we're out of balance, then maybe we can reduce some of that and save the district money there. And then Red Hill, we have the Red Hill Canal we have a potential slide there. Director Weber it's in her district. We were asked to go to OES and find out if OES had any money. There is no money, and there are 5 other homes that are sliding in Cascade. So we're actively looking to protect our asset, but also to work with the county and with property owners local to try to not only protect us, but protect them.
Is OES the only avenue to FEMA?
OES is the only avenue to FEMA, yes, ma'am.
that doesn't quite, being an activist, I think I would dig at that a bit and see if I could go around and go directly. If I couldn't get support from the county,
Sure.
then I'd go to FEMA directly.
Okay, for our
And work
facility, well,
backwards?
as soon as our facility's in danger, right, I mean, this is, some of this has to, the property owners have to go after it as well, right? I mean, they have to.
This is really quite a bit a county responsibility.
Absolutely.
And NID's responsibility is limited to the canal and any of that, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So I have a meeting with the county executive shortly.
Thank you.
So, with that, the Maven Kyler encasement project is moving forward. We'll be meeting with the residents on January 30th from 6:30 to 7:30. Rattlesnake project, that walkthrough will occur February 12th or the 13th, depending on weather. Future letter to go out to those folks. The Fay Road and Brewer pre-construction walkthroughs are being scheduled for February the 6th and 7th. We're slowly getting to a potential resolution on Rock Creek with PG&E, and the CEQA contract for the Hemp Hill diversion project that will come to the board on the 14th at this point.
I beg your pardon, which date?
On the 14th.
Of February.
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Thanks.
And then, we apologize for the parking. We're in the process of getting the generator in, and concrete trucks were here, and, sorry. Other than that, the contract with our architect is being processed for phase 2 of the building expansion. To reiterate, the generator was phase 1, so now the site is powered. Phase 2 will be widening this building, and then phase 3 will be the interior reorganization of the building, and phase 4 is a solar project, potentially in the future. With that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rem. Board of Directors reports. Nancy, you want to go first?
Okay. A couple of weeks ago, I went to Circle Wild and Scenic Film Festival. I went on Saturday. I spent the morning going down rivers in canoes and kayaks and rafts, and I had a wonderful time. I grew up on the Aroostook River in northern Maine. It was across the road. We swam every night. We canoed. We fished the mouth of Petty Brook for protein. It was depression time. So I love rivers, and I'm in sympathy with those folks who are wanting to preserve their river. I understand that, but it was great. I just want to comment. It was great going to this and having that experience again. At noontime, I went to a workshop on, it was titled Grazing, Soil Health, and Climate Change. And there are research projects going on that would make grazing healthy for the soil, certain practices. And this is probably not new field, but expanded maybe. You ag people know more than I do about that. Here's what I got out of it. The fellow leading the research, the presenter, was Peter Bike. He's from Arizona State University. They're connected with USDA. They have a grant of $1 million from Shell Oil companies. I don't quite make the connection, but you may. The method is to plant natives and tall grasses. You don't till, you don't add fertilizer. You rotate cattle every 30 to 35 days. Sometimes you can rotate them 80 days, depending on the conditions. Supposedly, you get 2 times the number of grazing days by doing this off the same plot. You don't do any haying. You're stimulating the bison grazing. Mostly this is in the Midwest. Trampling the soil actually helps break down the vegetation, and so it's what we organic farmers might do when we compost. They do have computer-based programs for management. It was very informative. I have all the information, and I'm thinking that this would be an asset to our ag people, our ranchers, and that we might participate with NRCS or RCD in a program to help get some plots going, because this would be a water-saving situation, and it would save costs to ag people. So I'm going to ask for that to be moved into some place as a thought. And then in the afternoon, I went to see a movie that's been done on Nevada City's prosperity, from the gold miners down through to the present. Extremely well done, and it's going to be on PBS in March. It shows the evolution of cultures in the city, and in the city where I live, and the county really as well. The political forces, the natural resources extraction. It doesn't show the next chapter. I think the next chapter is going to be pretty interesting. So that was a good opportunity. And I do have a question. I saw that the Maven Canal abandonment is up for possibility, and there are, I think, 8 parcels. Do I remember that? Yeah, more than that, looks like, a little more than that. How about their wells before we abandon this canal? What do we know about their wells?
We're not abandoning the canal, Director Weber, we're just encasing it.
What, encasing it?
We've already done the...
Beg pardon, okay, encasing it. Encasing it is not quite the same as leaving it open.
Correct.
Yeah, so what about the wells?
Nothing.
Okay, well, you are creating a potential threat to those wells, because the setback requirement, is this Placer County?
No.
Nevada County.
Okay, Nevada County, 50-foot setback from canals is county policy, and people have been doing this for years. They drill right next to the canal, and when that canal is encased or abandoned, or however it is absent, it leaves them with a potential deficit, severe deficit. So I think we need to get some kind of policy, we've talked about this before, that deals every time we abandon a canal.
So we've gone through this, the EIR at Newtown resolved this issue, Director Weber, and said that the district's water is not a right of the well owner. I know.
Ethically, I have a very hard time with that, and I really like to travel ethically.
I agree. I'm with you, Director Weber. If the property owner that has that well demonstrates that canal is connected to that well in any way, that well will be red tagged and that house will be red tagged, right? That's groundwater under the direct influence of surface water.
Well, Ram, we're not going to agree on this.
I know.
And I'm not going to give up.
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of battles, so I only have so much energy, but this is something NID needs to deal with, and there are other ways around this, I think. I'd like us to explore them.
Okay.
Thank you.
On that note, Nancy, as we move forward on the timeline on this, let's review each one of those situations on a case-by-case basis. And if there's information that we need to look at, bring that to the board or the WHO committee so that we can look at it and make a determination on how we are or are not affecting those parcels.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
What? Director Wilcox?
Sorry. That's what we do with CEQA.
Okay, that's fine, but as we move forward, there's a timeline on this. There's going to be time that's going to expire. There are going to be experiences associated with this. Let's just have a look at those experiences as we move forward.
Okay.
You don't have any more, right? Nothing more? For the good of the organization?
My comment is that at the next board meeting, there'll be a video presentation on birds, fish, and frogs and turtles that are going to benefit immediately, directly, and sustainably as a result of Centennial. This is also going to include a very significant recreation panel on the recreation opportunities that are going to be available from Centennial, and will also include a very comprehensive presentation on the agricultural aspects that will benefit from Centennial.
Director Wilcox?
I don't have anything to report, though I have a question on the Maven issue. Was the Maven Canal encasement project covered in a CEQA document?
Maven was category, yeah.
Under the maintenance?
Yes. And then the well issue has been defined, and I'm trying to remember the cases from 1930 concerning We purchased all the easements. The pipeline is in there, and the canal was in there at our control. What I mean is, we're not in a quid pro quo type situation with the well owners. We purchased all the easements. That, relating to the court case from the 1930s, indicates that the water, that seepage out of the canal, is the property of the district. There's no quid pro quo relationship, and we own that water, and we have that water right. That policy has been discussed, and
it's draft at this point.
it's draft and
We haven't
almost final.
we brought it to committee, but we haven't brought it forward.
Yeah, that's certainly my understanding as well. Do you concur with that, Justin?
Yeah, I do agree. I don't remember the case either, the name, that is.
I think it's Smith or something.
But there really is two separate issues, and I think Director Drew's point is well taken. One is, do these folks have a legal right to seepage? And the answer is almost always no. But the other issue is there an environmental impact that needs to be assessed under CEQA? And that's the item that has to be undertaken on a case-by-case basis. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. To my way of thinking, this issue has been asked and answered. Thank you. I have no other items to report.
Director Miller?
How long, Gary, since we're on it's my division again, South County, and the Mabe and Kyler were on moratorium for how many years?
Mabe and Kyler are still under moratorium.
Still under moratorium, so
But, however, this segment is 1,800 feet that we've replaced.
and potentially how
right
many
where the-
people are going to benefit? We expect,
Don't have that answer at the top.
we have a waiting list of people that would like to get water, so it's again, don't want to discuss it in a vacuum. This has been a long time coming. I've been trying to keep it at the top of the list since John Kirk was here back in the day. I don't know how many years back we're going, but,
It has been on the list since 1985.
okay, prior to my.
That
but
area.
I
The
did
district
hear
has been
that, yeah.
formulating to work on this.
No, right on.
It was put on the list for construction project with the district engineering probably about 3 years to 4 years ago.
Okay.
It's moved up to Q's as part of the Raw Water Improvement Fund, and now that one segment of the Maven is complete.
And historically, they were offered a enhance, work on it was in a lot of these people's backyard, these 8 or 9 parcels. The discussion was held some time back where we could come in, but they felt it was their backyard and they didn't want a whole bunch of changes to the existing canal, as I remember. So ultimately, it only made sense to go out into the street with this and then be able to
This is
serve
not-
these.
We went back where the original canal was. We received all the easements without with easy effort.
Right.
We purchased all the easements from the landowners. We filed a category exempt on the issue. We had environmentalists, I remember correctly, walk the area to see if there's any environmental issues, because a cat exempt that has environmental issues cannot be a cat exempt. It was clean. We'll put it right in the original old canal. In addition to that, there's people along the path line of this 1,800 feet we've replaced that needed water, that they have not been able to get water to, and we've added at least one service during this time, that new customer on that string.
So I'm saying, the people are actually, the neighborhoods, as far as, I'll come to the public meeting on the 30th, which is this particular issue, but they've been engaged and have been wanting to enhance things, so.
This next segment will
It's
go.
not like we're just doing this to people.
This is the next segment. This next segment is the existing canal. Basically is typically, if you drive down East Lime Kiln, is approximately about 50 to 70, maybe 100 feet off the edge of the roadway down below. It's easy to see from the road. It basically bisects people's property. The intent with the next segment is to put the pipeline in the road and then go through the current approved canal abandonment process that's with the district policy for that canal. We have not determined whether CEQA is necessary at this time, but we are discussing with the residents to see what their issues are.
Partly the purpose of the meeting on the 30th.
Yes. We have not bid, we have designed.
Thank you,
and
Gary.
This is
not an
another-
agendized topic, I just
And
did
this
want
is
to follow up a little bit on it. Thank you.
Just to kind of enlight on this this will be 2 segments. Anticipate hopefully construction 2018 for the first segment and the second phasing 2019.
Again, I appreciate the district expanding services in South County, which has been sporadically dry for a long time. So, the report of my recent activities would be laborious, and though we did get to the peaks in the Andes and to Patagonia, the itinerary was extensive, north to Salta, to Tucumán, back to Buenos Aires, down to Ushuaia, out onto the Beagle Channel, and then up to Calafate and up into the Glaciers National Park down there. Interestingly, their signs, the Argentinian people, proudly, and the scientist in me wasn't, because I believe in the climactic things that we seem to be seeing, they're, like we went to the Moreno Pareto Glacier, and you go right out to it, and it was touching land, and they show pictures for some years it's not touching land. They said they've been stable. They're glaciers throughout the Glaciers National Park. This is southern hemisphere, of course, since 1917. So, I don't know. I know Greenland's melting, but the good news is some of those southern glaciers are still hanging in there, and they fluctuate, but they appear to be stable over the last century and a half. So, anyway, Argentina delivered. Director Weber?
I just had the question back to the Maben from Dustin. Is the environmental work that we've done on the Maben adequate?
You know, I'm not familiar with it. I didn't, did my office review, Gary, do you know?
A category exempt is a document in which it is sent, first off recorded with the Recorder's Office, and then sent to the Office of Environmental Management that distributes it out there. I'm trying to remember. The Clearinghouse. The Clearinghouse distributes to all the environmental groups, which in turn, which are appropriate, which in turn they review it for compliance to category exempt to CEQA.
Gary, that really does not answer my question.
Yes, a category exempt is an environmental document.
The question was, did the attorneys review the document?
No, they did not.
Well, could they please?
I'm happy to send the one page to you.
Thank you.
But were there any objections to the CAT exempt? In other words, you file a CAT exempt with the clerk's office that starts at 30-day clock. Were there any comments or objections raised within the tolling period of the exemption?
No, there was not. Neither was any complaints from the residents over purchasing easements from them.
They've been clamoring for it for years. It's one of those things when I originally was like, what are we gonna do?
Okay. I have something to report here this time. I as well went to the Wild and Scenic Festival. I went Sunday. And I'm one of those ag people that you're referring to, Nancy. And I went to the agricultural panel. And there was a few takeaways there that I found were pretty interesting. I mean, the whole panel was very interesting. But some of the takeaways, there was a brief discussion about canal encasements. And there was several individuals who expressed concern about the environment around the canal as the canal goes through their property and what effect it has on the environment of that area around the canal with the flora and the fauna and the various critters. And so there was not really a debate, but just some concern about that if these canals are encased, what effect it has. It was more of a question. Also, more importantly, there was a person whose name escapes me. She's a rancher, and she gave us a history of her farm and how she was in the 70s moved out.
Laura Barheit.
Barheit?
Laura Barheit.
Yeah, Laura Barheit. Sort of mirrored what I did in a different area, but she moved to Nevada County in the early 70s, and she had a well that was only, I think it was less than a gallon. And so they weren't able to do anything but for the NID water that was available. And without the NID water, they weren't able to farm, ranch, or do much of anything, hardly have a garden or anything like that. So she gives a lot of kudos to having the district available for her at that time. And fast forward to I think maybe 5 years ago, she was able to purchase a larger piece of property and with NID water, and they were able to expand their ranch and be able to sort of make a living off that. So, you know, the benefits that we have here, and I can express that was one of the things why I moved to Placer County, and one of the important elements that I wanted was NID water, and so I didn't choose any place unless it had it. And so I think we're blessed to have the water here, and I think we can thank our managers and our management and the public, and we can also thank the miners who came and put these canals in, made it available. Finally, one thing I didn't know is that in the 1850s, in the gold rush, 98% of the food raised in Nevada County was raised in the consumed was raised in Nevada County. Right now, we're down to less than 1%, and I think that's Placer County is a little higher, but there's a great need for young farmers, and I think we have the available land, we have the water, and we have the climate, and there's a need, and I know that in Placer County, I can say that for sure, that you know, there is a renaissance there, and it's as a result of the raw water. So that's my take on that. Yesterday, I went on a tour, and I love these tours. General Manager Schertzinger and I and Director Drew went on a tour of Rollins, and we wanted to see the valve that was discussed. And I don't need to go into a lot of detail about it, but other than the fact that we wanted to ensure that the safety, how the valve worked, what it looked like. So we went into the long tunnel, and we met with the personnel there. Kean Summers led us in the tour, and I was impressed by the knowledge of the personnel of the hydro plants, and it you know, gives one confidence that you know, with the knowledge that they had and the time that they spent to explain everything to us in great detail and show us how this valve worked and how the facility works, and explain how the hydro facility works. And you know, it gives us confidence to know that they know what they're doing, and I want to thank General Manager Schertzinger and Kean Summers for spending the day going through all the details with us. And I've been on many tours, and so that's sort of a segue into I know we had a discussion earlier today about transparency, and I don't want to delve into the whole issue of it, but I feel as though we have, and I've always felt, that we have a transparent general manager, and I have worked with a lot of executives, general managers through my career, and I think REM is one of the most accessible ones that I've ever been in contact with. And so I think that is one of the elements of transparency. Not only that, but the staff has always been helpful. And I know I'm a director, but I think they go out of their way to ensure that I have the knowledge with what I'm doing here. So I think that's an element of transparency that you don't see. You'll just have to trust me that, you know, I feel that I'm getting all the knowledge. And so with that, I will end the session and go to closed session.
Comments on this closed session?
Oh, is there any comments on closed session? Thanks. Okay. I'm going to close closed session and open session. Concerning the closed session for real property negotiations, direction was given to the district's real property negotiators. Concerning the closed session for public employee performance evaluation of the general manager, no action was taken. We stand adjourned, closed open session.
And for the record, it's 12:42.